Trevor Story could be the true difference maker on the 2025 Red Sox. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. Trevor Story, over the last few years for Boston, has been a bit of folklore, right? We've heard tales of who Story could be. We've heard fables, if you will, of what Trevor Story could look like in a Red Sox uniform. We've even seen glimpses of it on the field here and there, but we haven't really seen the true full Story effect since he signed his contract. The question this year is, can that change? Can we get finally a full potential season from Trevor Story? And that's exactly what we're talking about in today's video. We're breaking down Trevor Story's current situation, how he really could change the entirety of this Red Sox team, and whether or not that's something we are going to get in 2025. And I know there are a lot of negatives surrounding Trevor Story right now, right? You take a look at his 3 years with Boston, he's played a total of 163 games. The offense overall just hasn't been there, but this is a new year. And with a new year comes a new hope that we finally see a 100% fully healthy Trevor Story and what he can do for this team. You know what's kind of impressive when we talk about Trevor Story's just sort of partial seasons here with the Boston Red Sox is that if you combine all 3 of his seasons with this Red Sox team, it equals one full season in Major League Baseball, 163 games. Technically a game over, but we're not going to split hairs here. We're going to call it one full season in the sport. And why it's impressive is because taking a look at the statistics, he's a 4-win player. That is a really productive player in Major League Baseball. If that's the equivalent of one season for Trevor Story, which based on his healthy years is absolutely something he could be, that's a really, really productive player. But what makes this really impressive is take a look at his offensive statistics. During that time, it's been well below average. A 232 average, a 269 on base percentage, and a 379 slug is good for a sub 700 OPS and an 89 OPS plus. He's been on average here in Boston about 11% below the league average producer at the plate in Major League Baseball. Corbin, why is a below average statistic impressive at all? Because that goes to show the first point in how Trevor Story can transform this team. Why is his WAR so high compared to what he's doing at the plate? It's because of simply how good he is defensively. Trevor Story, despite all the criticism you could throw his way, is one of the better defensive shortstops in the entire sport. If you take a look at his defensive numbers, 2024, kind of a tough one to really sort of navigate statistically because he just didn't have a lot of time to accumulate defensive statistics, so it was slightly above league average. But looking at 23, where he got almost a 50-game sample size, we're talking about 8 outs above average. That's a really impressive number to accumulate in just 50 games. In 2022, where he did have a majority of the season played, he had 10, which was 97th percentile in Major League Baseball. Only 3% of baseball players had a higher outs above average metric than Trevor Story did defensively in his time on the field. What we are talking about here with a healthy Trevor Story is a totally different outlook for the Boston Red Sox. Trevor Story comes in here and kind of totally changes up the way we view the Red Sox infield defense, which has been a major problem for the Red Sox over the last few years, hasn't it? We've talked about it 100 different times, both this offseason, last offseason, and even probably the offseason before that. If the Red Sox aren't good defensively, they are going to have issues, and Trevor Story staying healthy and being with this team is a major, major factor as to why. Even just in general, looking at the outlook of this Red Sox team coming into 25, it's probably the most optimistic defensively I think we as Red Sox fans have been in a very long time. The addition of a healthy Trevor Story to this lineup gives you essentially 5 potential Gold Glove candidates. You've got Willie Abreu, who won one, Jarren Duran, who came in second place for one last year, Ceddanne Rafaela and his potential defensively, Alex Bregman, who just won a Gold Glove, and now you add in Trevor Story. That's 5 of your 8 position players right now that are potential Gold Glove candidates, and that is a very, very exciting place to be. So the first place that Trevor Story really sort of changes everything, despite any sort of offensive conversation, is that defensive ability. It's something we've known about for a very long time. It's one of the few things that Trevor Story fans that are still out there, including myself, really try to highlight in how he can transform the Boston Red Sox. Shortstop is such an integral position. It's the general of the field, and he does a damn good job of it, and it's something that has always been a positive with his time here in Boston. It's not something that is going to change this season. However, that's just one part of this, right? You obviously know he's going to be good defensively, but what about those offensive metrics? We just went over the offense, didn't we? We talked about what his offense looked like over his combined full season in Major League Baseball with the Boston Red Sox, and it was well below average. It's fine if you are a defensive forward player, but Trevor Story isn't getting paid like a defensive forward player. He's getting paid like the all-around player we've heard, again, those folklores of throughout his time here in Boston. So how does he get to being that sort of all-around impactful guy? Well, we saw our first glimpse of it last season. Now, it wasn't the best overall statistical season for Trevor Story. It probably has a lot to do with the fact that he only played, 26, 27 games here with the Major League team last season. But even in then, despite the numbers being a bit lower than what we've seen in the past from Story, it was still a league average to above league average season. A 225 average, a 340 on base percentage, a 394 slug, and it led to a 104 OPS, 4% above league average production. Not exactly all-star level numbers, but certainly a step in the right direction for a guy who's been struggling at the plate. This year, he now has something to build off of. Last season, it was, okay, I just want to make the opening day roster healthy and ready to go. He came back in 2023 earlier than he really probably should have, just simply to try and help this team reach the playoffs. It didn't work out well. He ended up really struggling at the plate. Coming into 24, it was sort of a total rebuild, right? Not only did he have to get healthy, he had to remember how to be a productive hitter again. This year, not only has he been healthy for a longer period of time this offseason, he's also had a little bit to build off of. He has a little bit of a confidence boost coming into 2025. And I know that sounds dumb, and I know that sounds ridiculous considering it wasn't an incredibly good season in general, but this could totally change a mindset for a player. He understands that he can do it in Major League Baseball. He just needs to do it on a regular basis, and that's a really good place for Trevor Story to be in. The other thing I want to point out is this is an entirely different situation for Trevor Story this year. Last year, he was looked upon to be the Red Sox right-handed bat. Yes, you had Tyler O'Neill, but that wasn't really his predicted role coming into the 2024 season. Tyler O'Neill was your bottom middle half of the order bat, the guy that, hey, if Trevor Story can't get it done, maybe you can get it done type bat. Trevor Story was that guy, and if you don't believe me, look back at the opening day lineup. Trevor Story hit third where Tyler O'Neill hit fifth. Obviously, after the injury, Tyler O'Neill stepped up and became that right-handed bat for the Red Sox, but the expectation was always Trevor Story. This year, things are a little bit different, aren't they? You bring in Alex Bregman, and all of a sudden, Bregman's considered that right-handed bat, where Trevor Story takes over that sort of opening day Tyler O'Neill role. That, hey, Alex Bregman couldn't get it done, maybe Trevor Story can, and that's an entirely different situation than what he has been dealing with over the last few years, and it takes a little bit of burden off his shoulders, doesn't it? It can allow him to focus on just being Trevor Story, not being the right-handed guy for the Red Sox, just being Trevor Story for the Red Sox, and I think that totally changes your mental approach to your day-to-day everything. You're not putting as much pressure on yourself as you would have been if Alex Bregman wasn't signed. And speaking of Alex Bregman, I also think this is going to impact 2025. We talk about all the time Bregman's potential impact with this Red Sox team off the field, but it doesn't just stop at these young core of players. Obviously, he's going to have a big impact with those guys, but you look at a guy like Trevor Story, who has a similar style of hitting to Alex Bregman, who's gone through some stuff recently. Having a guy like Bregman to lean on, to bounce ideas off of, to sort of have these conversations about hitting where they both kind of fit in this similar box, has to be beneficial for Trevor Story's sake. But honestly, the question becomes, what does that look like, right? Trevor Story coming into this season a bit more confident, a bit more healthy, a bit more unburdened, and having this kind of mentorship on this team. What does that do? Well, if spring training is any indication, it does a whole lot of positive, because so far this spring, and the reason we are even making this video right now is because he's been absolutely ridiculous. In 22 plate appearances, he's hitting .476 with a 500 on base percentage and a .905 slug with a 1.405 OPS. Of his 10 hits this spring, 5 of them were for extra bases, 3 of them were for doubles, and he had 2 home runs in yesterday's 20-5 win against the Miami Marlins. Of course, that wasn't aired on NESN, so what you're seeing on screen right now, if you're watching this video, is some lovely fan footage because for some reason, they just refuse to air their games. I'm going to have a gripe with that, I think, the rest of my life, but that's totally besides the point. Now, obviously, these spring training numbers mean essentially nothing until March 27th, right? Numbers mean absolutely zero until the regular season begins. And right now, Trevor Story is facing mostly double A and triple A guys according to his quality opponent metric. That's a big difference, right? You're not facing major league talent yet. Obviously, you are expecting these guys, especially a guy like Trevor Story, to tee off on these type of pitchers. So yes, there is some, hey, wait a second here type stuff, but this is a really good sign. I think one of the better signs that we've seen this spring training is just what Trevor Story's been doing at the plate, specifically, I think, with his power approach. You go back to what he did in 2024, and a big reason why he was sort of just right around that league average number as opposed to being well above it is because that slugging percentage was down. It was down to .394, which was one of the lowest numbers of his career, the second lowest, with the first lowest being in 2023. So for 2 years in a row, we haven't really seen that power potential that we were promised with Trevor Story. Starting to see a glimpse of that in spring training should give you some hope. But again, we go back to that question, well, what does this end up looking like? Well, that's ultimately what we really can't answer until March 27th. Now, Fangraphs and Baseball Reference, really any predictive site, they aren't very kind to Trevor Story. If you look at what he's predicted to do on Fangraphs, it's not pretty. It is well below average. You look at what he's predicted to do via Baseball Reference, that's also not pretty. It's definitely well below average as well. I don't know, though. I don't know that he's going to end up being a below average hitter for the Boston Red Sox. And I think it's for a couple of different reasons. And we've already mentioned all of them. If Trevor Story can just do what he did last year with his average, with his on base percentage, and just simply bring up that slugging percentage a bit, we're talking about a totally transformed Red Sox lineup. If this dude can be the 20 plus home run potential hitter that we have been expecting him to be since he signed his contract with the Boston Red Sox, and the only thing that's holding him back from doing that is his health. If he is healthy in 2025, he absolutely should be able to reach that goal, and we're seeing exactly how he could do that in the way he's teeing off against these 19, 20, 21-year-olds or whatever in AA and AAA. I mean, just think about it. Think about it real quick. If your 1 through 6 is Jarren Duran, Bregman, Devers, Casas, Story, Yoshida, we're talking about 6 potential all-star bats directly in a row, right? I guess we could argue Masataka Yoshida, but at his peak, Masataka Yoshida absolutely could be an all-star caliber bat. And that doesn't even include young players that are coming up that could potentially also be middle-of-the-order bats as well. A healthy Trevor Story makes this lineup one of the deepest lineups in the entire sport. And I absolutely think he could get to that metrically this season, again, if he just simply stays on the field. What we're getting from Trevor Story and why him being healthy and being in the situation he's in this year totally changes everything is because we could finally put these folklores into reality. We could finally get the 20 home run hitter, the base path threat, the defensive general, and the overall leader that we have seen and heard Trevor Story's rumor of since 2022. Trevor Story may be back, folks, and that totally changes everything, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? What do you think of his spring training so far? What do you think of his situation this year? And is he as important to the Red Sox as I'm making him out to be? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you guys want to listen or watch on Spotify, all you have to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.